Some killers act out of rage, others kill for revenge. But every once in a while, investigators encounter someone far worse, someone who kills simply because they want to. This type of evil is hard to comprehend. There's no rhyme or reason, just cold, calculated action. This case is about one of those people. A predator who spent years carefully planning crimes across the United States. A man who treated human lives like opportunity. A killer whose level of manipulation and pure evil continues to disturb investigators to this day. This is the story of Samantha Koenig and Israel Keyes. On a freezing morning in February of 2012, a young barista pulled into the parking lot of a small roadside coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. Snow covered nearly every inch of the lot. Cars sat buried beneath layers of frost and ice as he made his way into the tiny teal-colored kiosk where he worked. The shop was called Common Grounds Espresso, and when he reached the employee entrance, he could tell immediately something was off, because the employee entrance door wasn't locked like it should have been. The employee who had closed the night before was 18-year-old Samantha Koenig. She was still fairly new at the job, but everyone described her as dependable. Forgetting to lock up didn't seem like something she would do. He figured it must have just been a mistake, but when he stepped inside, his feeling of unease grew stronger. There were napkins scattered across the floor, towels had been left out, cups sat abandoned at the counter. It looked less like someone had finished a shift and more like someone had suddenly disappeared in the middle of one. Confused, he walked around the counter to check the register, but it was open and all the cash was missing. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just careless behavior. Something terrible had happened. On the previous night, Samantha had asked her boyfriend, Dwayne, to pick her up after work. Her shift ended at 8 p.m., but Dwayne arrived around 30 minutes late after getting stuck at his own job. But when Dwayne pulled into the parking lot of the Common Grounds coffee shop, the stand was dark. No Samantha, no movement, nothing. Now, initially, he assumed that she was just angry with him. Earlier that evening, the two had argued through text messages after Samantha accused Dwayne of cheating. The fight had escalated, and it got a little ugly, and Dwayne figured maybe she had decided to leave with a friend instead of waiting on him. But still, something didn't sit right. He texted to ask where she was, but there was no response. So despite the argument, he drove to Samantha's house to check on her personally. Dwayne arrived at Samantha's house. He went and knocked on the door, but her father answered the door and said she wasn't home. The concern turned into fear. After a short conversation between the two men, Dwayne and Samantha's father, James, sat together in the kitchen, trying desperately to reach her. They called, they texted, and for a while there was nothing. But then suddenly, Dwayne's phone lit up. It was a message from Samantha. In this message, Samantha claimed that she needed time away after their argument. It said she was staying with friends for a few days and asked Dwayne to let her father know that she was okay. But immediately, James felt uneasy. This message didn't sound like his daughter. It wasn't how she spoke. He had raised Samantha since she was a toddler, and the two were extremely close. If her plan was to disappear for a few days, she would have told him directly. Ignoring every call and message from her family was completely out of character. But still, there was very little they could do except wait. By the next morning, Samantha still hadn't answered anybody. That's when her father, James, went to the Anchorage Police Department and officially reported her as missing. Initially, investigators weren't certain that a crime had occurred. Adults disappear voluntarily all the time, and without evidence of violence, there wasn't much that they could go on. But then, the police learned something alarming. The coffee stand where Samantha worked apparently had been robbed the same night she vanished. Soon after learning this, investigators obtained the surveillance footage from inside the kiosk. In the moment the investigators laid eyes on the surveillance footage, the case changed for the worst. The grainy security footage showed Samantha alone inside the stand during the evening hours of February 1st. She appeared relaxed, moving normally as she worked through customer orders. Then a customer approached the window. This particular customer remained outside the camera's view, but Samantha acknowledged them and began preparing their drink. Seconds later, her behavior changed instantaneously. She suddenly threw her hands in the air and stepped backwards away from the counter. It was apparent that something was very, very wrong. Moments later, Samantha reached over and turned off the lights inside the kiosk, plunging the interior into darkness. She slowly knelt down on the floor with her back towards the service window and remained there, motionless. After about 60 seconds, she stood up and walked towards the register. She opened it and removed the cash. Then she returned to the window and appeared to hand the money to someone outside. A short time later, a shadowy figure leaned through the service window. The footage was poor quality, but investigators could make out a man wearing dark clothing and a hood pulled low over his face. He appeared to bind Samantha's hands. Then, to everyone's horror, the man climbed through the window, entered the kiosk, and forced Samantha out through the employee exit at gunpoint. Two of them disappeared into the snowy parking lot and entered a white pickup truck before driving away. This footage confirmed every fear that Dwayne and James had. Samantha Koenig had been kidnapped. From that point forward, this investigation exploded. The FBI joined the case almost immediately, while volunteers across Anchorage began searching neighborhoods, wooded areas, and frozen trails for any sign of the missing 18-year-old. Meanwhile, Samantha's father, James, became the public face of the search effort. News outlets and media across the country picked up the story, and before long, thousands of people were following the case. Donations began to pour in to support the investigation and to fund a reward for information that led to Samantha's discovery. But despite all the publicity, investigators had almost nothing to work with. The surveillance footage was too blurry to identify the kidnapper. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no clear leads. Days turned into weeks, and then nearly a month after Samantha had vanished, something unexpected happened. Dwayne received another text message from Samantha's phone. This one instructed him to go to a public park in Anchorage and look for a specific sign. Police were notified immediately, but before officers arrived, Dwayne and James reached the location first. Attached to the bulletin board was a plastic bag containing a typed ransom note. Inside the bag was also a photograph of Samantha. In the image, she appeared exhausted and distant. Standing beside her in the picture was a hand holding a copy of that day's newspaper. This was a proof of life photograph, or so it seemed. For Samantha's family, this photograph brought a wave of hope. As terrifying as the situation was, at least they believed that she had survived. The ransom note was demanding $30,000. Following the FBI's instructions, James deposited part of the money into Samantha's bank account, while agents monitored the account activity around the clock. Then, withdrawals began. Footage from ATM cameras captured a man wearing a ski mask and sunglasses, withdrawing cash from Samantha's account around Anchorage. Each time, investigators rushed to the location, but they always arrived minutes too late. Then suddenly, the withdrawal stopped. About a week after that, the card became active again, this time hundreds of miles away. Withdrawals appeared in Arizona, then Mexico, then Texas. The suspect was clearly traveling. And during one ATM recording in Texas, investigators finally caught a major break. They spotted the vehicle the suspect was driving, a white Ford Focus. Authorities quickly issued alerts to patrol officers across the region. Then, on March 13th, over a month after Samantha went missing, a Texas state trooper noticed a white Ford Focus parked outside of a motel. The trooper waited nearby until a man emerged from one of the rooms and got into the vehicle. After observing the car exceed the speed limit just by a few miles per hour, the officer initiated a traffic stop. When the officer asked for the driver's identification, he handed over an Alaska driver's license. The name on it was Israel Keys. Keys was immediately pulled out of the car and placed under arrest. Investigators searched the vehicle and discovered items connected directly to Samantha's disappearance, including her debit card, cell phone, and clothing matching the suspect seen on the ATM footage. At first, Keys denied any involvement in Samantha's kidnapping, but when he was confronted with the overwhelming evidence, he eventually agreed to confess. What Keys went on to tell the investigators next revealed a level of planning and cruelty that shocked even experienced FBI agents. This confession was proof that Keys was purely evil. According to Keys, he originally intended to only rob the coffee stand, but the moment he saw Samantha working alone, he decided he was going to abduct and kill her instead. After forcing her from the kiosk at gunpoint, he drove her around Anchorage for hours, all while sending deceptive messages from her phone to make it appear that she had left voluntarily. While driving around Anchorage, they periodically stopped so Samantha could use the bathroom, or so Keys could smoke a cigar. But eventually, he brought her to his home. Upon arriving, he told Samantha to get in the back seat of his truck. He placed a blanket on top of her, and he told her that if she tried to leave, he would kill her. He then got out of the truck and went inside his house to make sure that his 10-year-old daughter and his wife were still asleep. After confirming that they were, he returned to the truck and told Samantha to come with him. They went into the garage, and Keys proceeded to tie Samantha up. He told her that if she made any loud noises or attempted to escape, he would just kill her. He then told her that he was reaching out to her father for a ransom. Samantha told him that her family didn't have much money, but he assured her that they would find a way to pay it, as they wanted her to be safe. He went back inside to check on his daughter and his wife once again. They were still asleep, so he poured a glass of water and brought it out to Samantha. He then untied her and unbound her wrists. She looked relieved as she could finally get a little more comfortable. He told her that he had spoken to her father, and the ransom payment was set up. He would be releasing her shortly. Samantha appeared stoic, but she was clearly relieved that this nightmare would soon be over. But moments later, he grabbed her by the hair and threw her down, tied her up even tighter than before. It was a lie. Keys just wanted to see how she would act if she thought she was being let go. He told the investigators that up to that point, he was impressed by her poise and stoicism. But in that moment, she had a look of defeat on her face, like she knew what was coming next. Keyes began removing his clothes, and then he sexually assaulted Samantha. After he was done, she looked at him bravely and asked, "Are you gonna kill me now?" He responded with, "You're a smart girl." He went back and checked on his daughter and wife once more. He grabbed a hunting knife, went back into the garage, and he started stabbing Samantha. He then choked her until she stopped struggling. He went back inside, took a shower, and changed his clothes. He then woke up his daughter so she could start getting ready for the flight they had. They were about to go on a cruise. After that, he went back to the garage and rolled Samantha's body up in a carpet. He tucked the carpet away, turned the heat and all the lights off in the garage, and just left her there. After returning from a cruise vacation with his daughter weeks later, he returned to Samantha's body. The harsh Alaskan cold kept her body from decomposing, so he dressed her and stitched her eyelids open and took the infamous ransom photo. He later disposed of her remains in a frozen lake outside of Anchorage. As investigators dug deeper into Keyes' background, they uncovered something even more terrifying. He had done this before. Samantha was not his first victim. Keyes admitted to multiple murders across the United States and described hiding kill kits in remote locations throughout the country. Buried containers filled with weapons, ammunitions, restraints, and tools used for murder. Investigators believe that he spent years traveling the country, specifically looking for victims. But unlike many serial killers, Keyes had no consistent victim profile. He looked for victims purely by opportunity. Young, old, men, women. Keyes did not discriminate. This MO of killing just anybody was indicative that Keyes was pure evil. Accompanied by the statement that Keyes made to the investigators. He didn't care who he killed. He just liked watching people die. Before authorities could uncover the full extent of his crimes, Keyes died by suicide in his jail cell in December of 2012. To this day, investigators still don't know how many people Keyes killed. Keyes told investigators from the second he laid eyes on Samantha that day in the Common Grounds coffee shop, he knew he was going to kill her. Everything he told her about the ransom, contacting her family, it was all a lie. He was playing with his food. The best guess on the number of Keyes victims is 11, based on a drawing he made in his jail cell. We know one thing for sure. Israel Keyes is the definition of evil. And even in her last moments, Samantha Koenig was a strong soul. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more stories just like this, please hit the like button and make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.